Hey, and welcome to The Office Field Guide. My name's Chris, and I'm reviewing every episode of The Office ever. And today we are looking at Season 5, Episode 2, or 3, depending on however you count it, called Business Ethics.
Let's get into ethics, yeah. Let me hear Dunder Mifflin talk.
This one was written by Ryan Koh, who seems to have really gotten his start in the industry working as a writer on The Office, and is now working on The Simpsons.
Excellent. Simpsons.
Business Ethics was directed by Jeffrey Blitz. It first aired on October 9th, 2008, was viewed by just under 9 million people, and currently has a low 8.3 rating on IMDb. And your trivia for today is, what phrase does Michael use to describe Cooper's Seafood House? This is a real place in Scranton, and this establishing shot was taken on location. Obviously, the interiors are shot in LA though. All right, and with that, let's crack this binder.
Talk. Woo! All right.
I understand nothing.
There's a lot to love in this episode, so let's start with maybe the earliest inspiration of this meme.
The story's kind of bland. It's about this guy named Dumbledore Calrissian who needs to return the ring back to Mordor. Really?
I've always loved this joke. I've never watched an episode of Battlestar Galactica, but I'm pretty familiar with the rest. I love when Michael says things wrong. It's one of my favorite ongoing bits of the series, but this one does feel a little forced.
And I'm glad I did. I feel very, very good. Cathartic.
And that's because we know that Michael already knows what this word is.
Allow me to have one cathartic experience in my life.
Another thing I've always loved in this episode is how much food Michael actually has in front of him. Of course, this is explained in a deleted scene.
And then we will move on to the lobster feast for two.
Anything else for you, miss?
Well, I'll just have the chef salad and no dressing and an iced tea, please.
So, do you still want those 2 lobsters?
Yes.
But I think it works with or without context. But as for other deleted content, there's so much. I think there's somewhere in season 4 where they really began to overproduce content for the show, because there's a lot of it, and some of it is just great. There's a scene where Jim is messing around with Dwight, taking the ethics questionnaire.
What'd you get for number 7?
It's an ethics questionnaire.
I know, but I didn't study.
Holly,
Dwight's
Jim is
cheating.
Oh, okay.
And just to rant on this for a moment, sometimes The Office hits the nail on the head for what it's like to actually work in an office. For me, this is one of those times, and it makes me both love that they're riffing on this and dread to go back to work and do stupid stuff like this.
But ideally, you would have selected totally agree.
I thought very strongly agree sounded stronger than totally agree.
Anyway, deleted scenes. There's the infamous safari thing.
During our honeymoon safari in Africa, Bob and I were driving late at night, and he'd been drinking, and suddenly, thump. Maybe it was just an ostrich in a soccer uniform.
Which, here's my take on it. I'm gonna lean towards this being cut due to the producers not wanting to have the idea that Phyllis has committed manslaughter secretly in Africa on her conscience for the rest of the series. So it was cut, and in this case, not canon. And Michael reaches out to Toby for help.
Hey, I have Toby on the line for you, and he said he's returning your call.
He's a liar.
B, even though I've left the job, I now have a duty to report it.
So outside the deleted scenes, there's really only a few more things I want to talk about. First, and maybe the highlight of the episode for me, I love Phyllis and Stanley.
Keep the ribs coming.
That high five is the best. And the whole crux of this episode leans on this ethical issue.
The Scranton rep for Hammermill. For the past 6 years, I've been sleeping with him in exchange for discounts on our supplies and Outback Steakhouse gift certificates.
And we'll talk about that more in the deeper meaning, but we do have kind of a continuity error here. Hammermill has only been a supplier of Dunder Mifflin since 2006, when Michael won them over from Staples in the convention episode.
Evan will call you in the morning to work out the details. We can now sell Hammermill products.
Yes!
This was actually asked of Ryan Koh, and he told the interviewer that it was just a mistake in continuity. Take this for what it's worth, the video seems to have fallen off the internet completely, but trace evidence would suggest that it is legit. He wrote the punchline as Hammermill because they're well known, and it also sounded sexual, which made me laugh, so hey, at least there's a reason for the error. Not a big deal in my mind. Other than that, let's just dive into the deeper meaning.
What does a bean mean?
Someone please explain it to Cat.
First, let's address this.
Around here, Oscar is known as actually, because he will insert himself into just about any conversation to add facts or correct grammar.
That isn't ethics. Ethics is a real discussion of competing conceptions of the good. This is just the corporate anti-shoplifting rules.
Actually, that's not true.
There's really two meanings behind ethics. One is philosophical, as Oscar mentions here.
Ethics is a real discussion of competing conceptions of the good.
The other, it just means a set of moral principles that govern a person's behavior or activity.
This is just the corporate anti-shoplifting rules.
Or in other words, how someone handles the decision to steal a pencil is a conversation about ethics. And whether or not stealing a pencil is good or not is also about ethics. It gets dicey to talk about due to three factors. First, there's a general stereotype that people who argue about this kind of stuff on the internet are extremely Oscar-like. And if that wasn't clear, I mean, people get very pretentious and finicky about words. And I'm sorry, not sorry. Secondly, on that point, there's a difference between ethics and morality. And people love to argue this because people get very pretentious and finicky about words. And then thirdly, things get Socratic real fast.
Socrates.
Meaning that people have been talking about this debate for thousands of years, and there is no clear answers.
I mean, because it is unknowable.
So let's skip all of that and make this topic simple. Well, simply show how complex this topic is, which seems to be the point of this episode.
I took intro to philosophy twice, no big deal.
Most conversations dealing with ethics are presented as dilemmas, or what would you do type situations. Typically, these dilemmas don't have a very clear right or wrong answer, either because there are consequences or there's no easy solutions. So let's talk about the dilemmas shown in this episode. Starting in the cold opening, the dilemma of telling the truth to coworkers is debated.
She's not a virgin, you know.
Wow.
Holly has to decide literally to stick to the book of ethics or stray away from it. Ryan's misconduct is brought up, but whether or not he cares about his past behavior is shown here.
Anyone see Survivor season 6? Anyone know Joanna on that show? In New York City, I hooked up with a girl who looked exactly like that.
And shown here again.
You knocked the mirror off of my car.
Yeah. Isn't that messed up?
Yeah.
Time theft is brought up.
Can anyone think of examples of things that are over-the-line time wasters?
This meeting.
Real theft is brought up.
That's not right.
Lauren, enough with the pencils.
Angela's dealing with her affair.
No, that's not how it works.
Stealing intellectual property is brought up.
I download pirated music onto my work computer.
Who hasn't? Good.
Reporting coworkers to immigration services is brought up.
I once reported Oscar to the INS. Turns out he's clean, but I'm glad I did it.
High stakes sex is brought up.
Have you ever had sirloin steak, honey?
That's crazy.
And then the dilemma that eats up the rest of the airtime is what to do with Meredith.
I mean, all of you have done things I wouldn't have done myself, but Meredith's actions are really over the line.
Yeah. What you gonna do?
Also, Michael has a slight dilemma on how to say I told you so.
How do you tell somebody that you care about deeply?
Okay, and the other thing this episode does is show us how different people handle ethical issues. And rest assured, there are big words for all of these things, but we're gonna keep it simple, stupid.
Great advice. Hurts my feelings every time.
There's justification, which means we know the choice we're making is unethical, but we can choose to accept it because
I want to go outside and hang out once an hour, then I'll just take up smoking. I'll do it.
there's rationalizing, which means we know we're making an unethical choice, but we can accept it because of something like this.
Have you ever had sirloin steak, honey?
Then there's a refusal to accept that these choices matter at all, which I think Ryan embodies.
That guy took no responsibility for his actions.
But are you gonna pay for my mirror?
If I have to answer for everything that guy did, I'm never gonna move on.
And then the last one we see is an attempt to be perfect, which just means that in order to not be guilty of some moral quandary, a person swings so far into the rule-following zone that they're just blinded by the rules.
At 1:32, he peed, and I know that because he did it in an open soda bottle under the desk while filling out expense reports.
At the end of this episode, there's no real clear right or wrong that's being presented. I mean, I would suggest that they're wrong for not dealing with Meredith. This is an ethical thing. I kind of side with Holly on this.
Kendall, I understand that the discount is good for the company, but I'm just not happy about the way we're getting it.
I'm just not sure this show makes it a point to tell us that Meredith was wrong for this.
Am I getting fired? Now is really not the time, Meredith.
And we see that Meredith gets off scot-free, as does everyone else in this episode. And to Oscar's point,
or it could be the $12 million in deferred compensation and stock options they paid the CEO for a year of substandard performance. I'm sure we'll cover both in the seminar.
these are all super minor, and they pale in comparison to the big corporate ethical violations. So what's the point of this episode? Should we join Ryan on nihilism? Who should be our judges and juries?
Judges and juries.
I mean, look, humans have been trying to figure out the answers to these questions, and The Office did not answer it. Because there is no answer. We're just a bunch of humans flying around in the space rock trying to figure out how to get along with each other. I have my beliefs about all that, but it really doesn't matter in this conversation. Here's the only take I will give you from my own thoughts, because that's what I'm doing here. If you're gonna live by a code, live by that code. There really shouldn't be wiggle room. If you say one thing, do that thing. Don't be like Dwight.
19 minutes and 48 seconds. What were we doing for 19 minutes and 48 seconds?
None of your business.
And also I could say don't be like Ryan. But for questions like, is there right or wrong? What is the good? It's probably better shows to watch than this.
Wow! What time we got? You know what? That's a good place to end it.
This is the worst!
Okay, cold opening. It is nice to have one of these again, but it's fine. There are some issues with the writing though.
That they might be off the hook for because I didn't tell them.
What? Why not?
I just didn't, you know.
I don't really see why Jim and Pam did not already have this conversation, like immediately. Further, I don't really know why Pam expected any phone calls in the first place. And I don't mean like, oh, she's so selfish. I mean like, she's met these people. Why would any of them call her? And why would she be upset about it not happening? I don't really know. Those are my problems with the writing. But it does get a little bit of redemption with this tackle.
Sorry.
I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. As for the episode itself, I secretly love this one. It's not the best, I get it. I get a kick out of moral thought experiments and the philosophy behind all of it. I assume so did Michael Schur, who'd be leaving The Office around this time to go start up Parks and Rec with Greg Daniels, a show that often deals with ethical dilemmas inside the government, as well as later moved on to The Good Place, which is a 19.5-hour series about moral philosophy. And it's great. Also, I have to say, I don't really know if this is the most clever foreshadowing ever done in this series or not, but if it is, I love this line.
Well, I just have to get through the binder. You're kind of losing them. I am?
Yeah, don't think about the stakes. It'll freak you out.
All up, I'm giving this episode a 4 out of 5. We're back to The Office, and I think we really hit its stride after the shaky weight loss episode. But that's just what I think about business ethics. The episode itself. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to comment contest and leave an emoji sequence for next week's episode, which is the baby shower. All right, thanks for watching. And if you want more Office videos, click on some of these things. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.